Amendment and its Establishment Clause. Now, Christians, in an attempt for confirmation bias, they try to they go with this mantra of no separation in of church and state. That was something Jefferson said in a letter. It's not actually in the Constitution, but what I suggest you do is that you should read what the Christian, Madison was a Christian, so this is, you could argue this is a Christian perspective. He's the one that wrote the amendment, and when asked what it means, or the Establishment Clause, when asked what it means, he said, Congress should not establish a religion and enforce the legal observation of it by law, nor compel men to worship God in any manner contrary to their conscience. So, according to the United States Constitution, Christian ethics are forbidden from being part of government.
No,
a national religion creates dysfunctional or a dysfunctional government. In other words, it's a compass, not a ruler. So Andrew's position, I think, would be illegal. So I'm not really sure where. I mean, kind of good luck with that, I guess. I don't think Andrew respects people who loot and riot, cross the border illegally, or violate the Constitution in any other way. So I don't know. Well, I'm curious to see what we're going to hear, but that's an issue I think we have. And then the last thing is, the point of how I set this up is that governments are systems, and systems are, they have a certain function, and that function, if you want to discuss or describe how it ought to work or how it should work, what the best way to make it work is, these are just normative claims. So I'm not really here to talk about objective ethics or morality or anything like that. But if Andrew does try to do that, I'm not really sure that Andrew has the argument. But even if he did, we have the problem of arbitrariness, and you can't derive an ought from an is. So I'm not really sure how Andrew's going to try to prescribe Christianity being in government.
What ought to be already exists.
He's perfectly welcome.
And so it is.
Because this is
what ought is.
I will try to do. He's perfectly welcome to use any normative claims for what Andrew wants to see happen in government.
Ought doesn't mean that it doesn't exist.
Will help with that. But I think they're going to contradict both the religion and the government in question. And we'll see whatever it is.
Fallacy. That'd be like saying, like, if we lived in a morally perfect world, then there would be nothing that we ought to do.
Reasons for wanting it in government. Right. I think that there are serious and literal contradictions in.
There's nothing you should do in a morally perfect world. That's absurd conclusion.
Cool. Are you ceding the rest of your time?
Yeah, that was under 7 minutes, so I cede the rest of my time.
Perfect. Andrew, let me know when you're ready, and I'll start the timer.
Yeah, I have 10 minutes, correct?
Yes, sir. Are you ready?
Yeah, go ahead.
Cool. You have 10 minutes starting now.
I would like to remark in my opening statement that Mr. Peterson made a very long hit piece about yours truly called Andrew Wilson is a Moron. Very good framing on that, by the way. In it, he claims I misrepresented and gave bad arguments against secular humanism and Craig FTFE. When offered the same debate with the same prompts so he could prove it, our good friend Mr. Peterson did decline. I just want to point that out. Instead, demanding that we
get to the point, Andrew.
To, quote, convince him Christianity needed to be in government. When I said that was fine, if I could do the same thing to him in secularism, he also declined. He also, strangely enough, told his audience some false things, and I just want to clear those up very quickly. Mr. Peterson didn't demand this format of debate, so I couldn't evade questions. Rather, we were doing the format that Taco himself does every single debate I have seen him host, and the same format that Taco requested to begin with. So I have no idea why Mr. Peterson made that up, but he did. Perhaps to sound like he got me in some kind of format I'm not used to, but he's going to find out better tonight. Now, to the debate itself, Mr. Peterson has the affirmative that Christianity shouldn't be in government. He qualified American government, which I agreed to. He just went over that himself. I'm completely uninterested in any tangential debate that Mr. Peterson actually wants to have, which is just God isn't real, though, which means nothing in this debate. To start with, I'd like to bring up the country most libs point to as the happiest in the world, Finland. In the happiest
True, because in a world without God,
exist
then
two
we should
state
there's no
churches.
reason why
Yes,
we should
that's
honor
right.
truth
Two.
outside of its
Both of these
utility.
bodies have
And
the
if
ability to
Christianity
levy
provides the better
taxes.
utility, even
The
though it's
taxes
false,
paid by
then
members
we
of
should
the two
default to
churches and the rates
Christianity.
determined on the parish
And Christianity,
level. While the government collects the
by all
taxes,
metrics,
the two
does
churches
give
pay
the
for
better
cost of
results
collecting them and receive the amounts
of
paid.
working,
These go to
coherent
fund the maintenance, repair of churches and public services,
assertions and
such as record-keeping, funeral
affirmations
services, and
of
many
law
others.
and
We
culture
would call this a
and
form of
family
symphonia in
and reproduction
Orthodoxy.
and generation.
The idea of the church working hand in hand with the state, represented by a two-headed eagle. Now, here in the USA, you can imagine that the government levying a tax
Even
at
if it
the
was all
behest
false.
of the church,
Because every
and then
worldview is
collecting
false,
it
because
along
there's no
with
true
normal
worldview,
income
because God
taxes,
doesn't rule.
would be something Mr. Peterson wouldn't like very much. It's an example of the church and government working just fine. But wait, there's more. Since these are two different churches, one the Orthodox Church, the other a Lutheran church, you would think there would be significant social problems. He brought this up in his opening. Quite the contrary. That's odd considering their dogmas and doctrines are so removed from each other, isn't it? Yet, by all accounts, these two bodies, while they engage in rigorous debate, generally work hand in hand towards the general good and welfare of the peoples of their nation. Mr. Peterson will claim in this debate that there are so many different denominations of religions. How did I predict that? How could we possibly choose which one would represent us? Yet, all of those denominations exist.
How about the one that
even
most
when they're doing
theologians
fine.
all
The
have a
happiest
consensus
people on earth,
around?
supposedly.
Ooh, Orthodox
Yet they have
Christianity,
Hindus, Jews, Catholics,
right?
Anglicans, Islamics, all under the same roof of a nation.
I'm just saying,
with
like,
two denominations being officially recognized.
like what
churches,
religion has the
churches
most
having a say in
population
actual
with a
policy making.
consensus
There should be
around
some
the
kind
truth
of
claim?
nightmare
If all
for
there
Mr.
is just
Peterson,
brute force
but it seems to work
consensus,
so
if
good
it boils
that
down to
they're the
that,
happiest people in the world.
then it comes down
Go
to
figure.
basically the billions
Now,
of
to U.S.
Catholics.
policy, try to understand
Like
that
the
our
billion
nation
Catholics or
itself
whatever.
isn't divorced from religion any more than
I guess like the
federal,
1
and
point
never
something
has been.
billion or
There's
whatever.
simply an establishment clause saying the federal
Or
government
how many are
can't
there?
favor one religion over another or prohibit the free exercise of it. Interestingly, they still can. One way is they simply don't recognize a religion as valid, and they do
So
this by not
20%,
recognizing the
53
church as
million in the
legitimate and
United
not recognizing
States.
them as a church and giving them the same status as other churches. Which, by the way, they
And
do
about
all the time.
1.2 billion
The
in
IRS
the
has
world.
official rules for what a church is. In fact, it includes creeds, forms
That's
of worship.
the
It's
closest
super
thing to like
extensive.
universal
Now
consensus
to
you
the
can get
arguments
out of a
themselves for
religion
Christianity
compared to
being
any
a
other
government.
religion on earth.
One, the early history of the United States is one that tells a different
If we're like
story
looking
than a
to
modern
like
secularists would have you believe, like Mr.
something like
Peterson.
that.
The founders in shaping this constitutional republic
As like a
referenced
estimate of
Deuteronomy
truth.
more than any other
Or
philosophy.
just like the fact
This
that they
study was
they
cited by
they have the
American
force to
Political
enforce
Science
it,
Review and is noted
and so
by the
therefore
C.S.
it should
Lewis
be the
Institute,
one that
who
we adhere
remarked
to,
this.
because
This is also a
population
book that records
numbers,
God's
and they're
dealings
in the
with
Supreme
chosen
Court,
nation,
and they're
especially
ruling
establishing
schools
political
and
and legal
running charities
institutions
and running
necessary to govern the
hospitals,
nation.
right?
Now we can find
And
texts
like
in the New
are
Testament that deal with
instituting
government.
marriage,
Think Romans
right?
13, for
So they're doing
example.
everything
And it gives us a
necessary and
sense
functionally
of the
essential
duties of
to
citizenship and the like. But what we find in the book of
civilization,
Moses,
right?
and in that
And a
condensed version of
military,
Deuteronomy is the nuts
a
and bolts
self-sufficient
of
military
how do you make
and militia.
the establishment of a nation. This is direct proof, by the way, end quote. This is direct proof the Bible was indeed.
And what
used
other religion does that?
to determine
Can you name
government
one?
Structure itself. My second
Just one.
argument is that most
Just
states
one.
that are founding already
Right.
had state religions, and that you had to swear oaths to Christianity.
Or you want to be
to hold
Islam?
office.
You want
The
to be a
Constitution
Muslim?
was ratified
Like, or something?
1788, and there were still
Like,
states with official state
No,
religions.
sorry,
which
women.
makes it laughable that under the
Put on
10th
your
Amendment,
hijab
they didn't
and
allow
get back in the
states
kitchen.
to have state religions because they clearly did. Our founders were fully aware of this fact, stating the Constitution was for a moral and religious public. Quote, our Constitution
And no more
was
driving.
made only for a moral and religious people.
You have to have
It
a
is wholly
man
inadequate
escort you to the
government of
grocery
any
store.
other. John Adams. Adams is talking about men who believe like Mr. Peterson, by the way. 9 of these states required a sworn
And I don't
oath
even know
that
if they
Jesus Christ is
fulfill
Lord,
like
in fact.
all the same
There
like
didn't seem
charities
to
and
be very
hospitals
much
and things like
confusion.
that,
My
like
third
humanitarian
argument is that the
efforts
entire United
that you
States
might
is already
call,
run like a
right,
religious institution. Men with
charity
ceremonial
efforts.
black robes who sit on high pedestals judge the people on judging days. Other men in black ceremonial robes give and interpret the law. We have national anthems, the etymology of which are liturgical hymns. We have dogmatic beliefs in every sense of the word. Dogmas around patriotism, American exceptionalism, a strict adherence to the concept of rights, an invisible metaphysical concept, which isn't true, but we put faith in it anyway. We persecute heretics. We call them communists and socialists and people who, quote, want to destroy our way of life. Anybody who goes against the law of the land is interpreted by the lawgivers and the law interpreters in the black robes, and they will be persecuted for it. Things like rights and other dogmas are forced on the population as a way in which they must live their life, as a sense of normative claims. Our politicians take oaths of office, often given on the Bible itself, but the fact they are giving oaths at all infers there will be some kind of divine intervention to that oath breaker. They give oaths
that words
of office,
have power,
like
and they're not just superficial, but prophetic.
Is religious and dogmatic.
It is necessary to believe. Science is completely predicated on the ability to
or in any way
prophesy in some way, like to have a prophetic intuition to tell the future and make predictions.
Makes no sense absent the Christian view.
Right.
This concept is uniquely biblical.
Like the entire definition of success in science is built on it, around it.
In a non-Christian view, there isn't really any reason at all for justice to be meted out the way we mete it out. An eye for an eye or serious punishment is just as reasoned for justice as forgiveness and rehabilitation. Why can't a rapist be castrated or graped himself for the crime of grape? Why not murder the murderer? This is every bit in conformance to reason as the current justice code, except the current one still relies on Christian ethics. I have 6 more arguments after this, but I think that that's probably as much as I can fit in for my opening. But let me address a couple things before we get to the cross-examination. I agree with Mr. Peterson. He can't get an ought from an is, but then he makes this really bizarre claim. He said, Peterson says, I'm at the mercy of a should claim, but he's at the mercy of a shouldn't claim, which is also an ought claim. I don't know if he knows this or not. When you say you should not do thing, that's also an ought claim, just like saying you should do a thing. So saying we should not have Christianity in government is making a normative claim. It's literally making an ought claim. So I don't know what the fuck he's talking about there, but we can get into it. What can you do when you can't criticize Islam, he says, or Christianize Islam or Christianize these people? What do they do in Finland, where all of these different denominations live together and there's 2 state religions? Well, what happens is the 10th Amendment goes into effect, and it's up to the ethics of the population to put in the religion that they choose. Also, he says Christian ethics are barred from government, and that's actually kind of just counterintuitive and stupid. If you vote your conscience and you're Christian, that's Christian ethics. Just like that, that's Christian ethics. If you're a politician and you're voting based on your normative ethical framework and you're a Christian, you're going to be voting against abortion bills, you're going to be voting against tax bills, you're going to be voting for all sorts of different things, which are going to rely heavily on your actual ethical framework, which is Christianity. It's already there. It's already there. And does he want to get rid of it? No. What he'll say instead is, no, I'm fine if Christians utilize the Constitution by voting in other Christians who can then amend the Constitution. So it's like, he can't even tell me that they shouldn't be there. He'll actually have to say that they should. And with that, I'll cede my time. We can get into the cross-examination.
That was perfectly timed. So we'll be moving into the cross exams. The affirmative is going to go first. You'll have 30 minutes, and then the negative is going to have 30 minutes as well. Once again, in the cross exams, please make sure to address your opponent's questions directly and concisely. And also, try not to turn it into your cross exam, right? It's okay to ask a clarification question. But Eric, whenever you're ready, let me know, and I'll start your timer.
Well, real quick before you start, I'll make a deal with you, Eric. I'll answer all of your questions good faith and concisely, if you promise you'll do the same when it comes to my cross-exam.
I mean, that's what I planned on doing.
I know. I just always make that deal at the outset because, well, people...
No, that won't crash.
If they go first, well, they become bad faith when it becomes your turn to cross-examine them. So if we make that deal, I'll do it.
Yeah, I mean, sure. The only thing, I mean, I'm going to be pretty anal about like staying to the topic of the debate.
Good. Yeah. No problem. I'm not going to divert. I'm just here to answer your questions on cross-examination from my position.
Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Taco, I'm ready. So just tell me when you're ready.
Yep. Starting the timer now. You have 30 minutes.
Okay. During the summer of 2020, the summer from hell, and all the I'm sure you remember, Andrew, the Black Lives Matter riots were going on. There was a lot of looting that was excused.
So does the argument go boom,
and
boom?
Their rationale for that was because the people were stealing were poor, and they stole from mega corporations, for example, who have too much and they don't contribute to society. So I assume you don't accept that position.
I actually don't understand how this relates to the topic, but I'm willing to engage with it, I guess, anyway. No, I would not accept that standard. But I think that the justification they were really using for BLM was different, which they were making it about social justice. Though I do think there were a few leftist apologists who were definitely making the claim of social inequality.
Yeah. And okay, that's perfectly fine. I mean, without getting into like if you can do it quickly, fine. If you don't want to, then, or if you don't think you can, that's fine. But what's your position on like the redistribution of wealth in general, in welfare in general? Just kind of like for, against, or, and I think it can be done properly, but whatever.
Oh man, that's that's kind of loaded. So generally speaking, I'm a capitalism supporter. I think that has done, as Bono rightly pointed out, it has done more to bring people out of poverty than any other system which is available. But I also believe in the charitable donations of the various peoples who follow the faith, and that they should help where they can help.
Well, personal charity and redistribute. I guess I was thinking from the lens of a bureaucratic government apparatus.
Well, I mean, it's hard. You'd have to give me something specific. Like, do I think that the government has a right to levy taxes? Yes. Do I think that the government should levy income taxes? Probably not. I think there's better ways like tariffs or things like this. But generally speaking, I'm against a redistributive model. If you're talking about government takes from rich guy and then hands it to the poor guy, generally speaking, I would be adverse to something like that.
Okay, fair enough. So I have some quotes, and I want to read the quotes for you, and then I'll kind of get your reaction to them. Whatever certain people have in superabundance ought to go to supporting the poor. Mm-hmm. The next one is, it is lawful for a man to support his own need by means of another's property, by taking it, either openly or secretly. This is not, properly speaking, theft or robbery. Another one.
Wait, say that one again.
It is lawful for a man to support his own need by means of others' property, by taking it either openly or secretly. This is not, properly speaking, theft or robbery.
Okay.
Couple more. Anyone who has material possessions and sees his brother in need but does not help doesn't possess love. And this last one's not super relevant, but
yeah, well, you're talking about, well, the third one's referencing sins of omission. So there's 3 categories of sin, and a sin of omission would be like you can help a person, but you choose not to help a person.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Next one. Now in human society, no man can exercise coercion except through public authority. With regards to rulers, the public power is entrusted to them, that they may be the guardians of justice. It's not exactly related to the others, but kind of in a little bit. Or will be in a little bit. So I have one more quote, but one more preface to the quote for you. So sorry to bombard you with quotes. But there are some people like Hassan Piker, not a huge fan of him. You probably aren't either. But they take this position that, for example, being tough on crime doesn't do anything. That's the wrong position because it doesn't address root causes. Instead, they believe we should expand welfare or do reparations or whatever to lift people up, and then people just won't want to steal. I think that that's kind of like me. I don't think that that's right. I'm just curious what your take on that is.
Well, I think that you can have a multi-tiered approach. In the purpose of Christian ethics, we definitely have to keep dangerous people away from society, but we would try to focus on rehabilitative justice before we would try to focus on corrective justice, meaning, and when I say corrective in this sense, I just mean punishment. So rehabilitation would always tend to move to the forefront. Though there could be exceptions to that, depending. It just kind of depends on what the case use is.
Sure. To be a little more clear, the idea is that this isn't about this is about before people enter the justice system. Mm-hmm. Do you agree with the idea that we should like expand welfare and things like that so that people have better means so that they don't feel like stealing? Do you think that would
I would adjust policy so that you could try to steer clear of there being a need for welfare. So I think addressing things like inflation, the value of the dollar, Congress's ability to coin money, various things like this would be a much better route to attacking the causes of poverty rather than just handing poor people money. Ultimately, I don't think that gets at the root either.
Okay, fair enough. And then I have one more quote for you. Sorry to do that, but the quote is, and it's related to the thing about, we shouldn't be tough on crime. We should just give to the poor so that they don't want to steal. So here's a quote. There are dreadful punishments enacted against thieves, but it would be better to make such good provisions that every man might have the means to live and so be prevented from the necessity of stealing.
Yeah.
So I gave you a litany.
I actually would generally agree with that statement. But when you're talking about the conditionals for how you go about that, that may be where you would get into the argument. Like, what are the conditionals which would address the fact or the thing that made the person the thief to begin with?
I don't think that it's, I'll take it.
Solely
interesting.
Poverty. There's going to be a multifaceted.
Let's see if we can get them all through. I'm going to guess
enough.
not.
In the context of the person
I think it's my break.
About that is kind of what they were talking about because they were talking about people stealing. So it is material needs that aren't being met. But anyways.
Well, who's the person speaking there?
I'll tell you in just a second. So I just want to know, do you agree
you
with
feel like you've snared the trap? Go ahead. Go ahead, bro. Yes.
So do you agree with any of the logic of any of those quotes I gave to you?
Yeah, they would have to be context specific. It's like if you do what's called a quote mining, and you probably run into this all the time with academics. People will take studies, they'll quote mine from studies, or they'll quote mine from various academic
This is a tough one.
And then use that as an example. Flat earthers do this all the time to you evil globies, right? They take just portions of what's being said and they don't contextualize them. And so because they don't contextualize them, you don't really understand in context what they're saying. So I could easily on the surface agree with at least some of what's being said here, but I would probably need to dive into the contextualization.
Well, I'll try to pick out one that I think is actually unambiguous. And it is the idea that it was the second one, the one you had me reread. If somebody steals from somebody to support his own needs, and that person's poor and that other person is well off, then that isn't technically theft or robbery.
Yeah, well, the thing is what you're talking about is you're talking about a pardonable sin. So, like, this is a normative fight that people have all the time in Christianity or probably in every secularism, whatever it is. The idea is like, if you're coming out of the desert and you're parched and you're going to literally die if you don't steal water from a well, are you justified in stealing water from the well, right? This is what the question is. And so, again, I think that you can add some sort of pardonability to something like that versus, well, I broke into your house to steal shit so that I could buy drugs. I think that I think that there's a distinction in contextualization, and that's why I can't actually agree or kind of disagree with that without additional context.
Okay, in America today, does that sound like something you would support?
Generally speaking, no. But again, I still think that if like a kid stole a candy bar, I wouldn't cut his hands off either, right? I would give some kind of pardon for that.
Well, yeah, but I mean, we're not talking about we're not talking about children.
I'm talking about a 19-year-old. Let's just say, like, I'd call him a kid, right? 19. Well, he's 19, right? He's a dummy. He did something stupid. You know, he stole a candy bar or something like this because he didn't have enough to eat. I think that most people would probably pardon something like that.
Yeah, but I mean, the question isn't whether or not we should enact corporal punishment for it. It's whether or not it even counts. as theft. And a pardon doesn't mean that you absolve the person of guilt either. So I've already used my first 10 minutes. So I don't
want to sidetrack. If you can give me the context for this, I can answer it better.
I actually don't think that these...
You don't want to give me the context, do you? Because then the trap doesn't work. Can you just give me the context, and then I can answer it honestly?
See, what I think is not... Well, no, I think you're not answering because you don't... I guess I'm not really sure. I don't find these quotes to be requiring very much context. It's not theft if you don't have and you steal from somebody somebody that does. Or that people with superabundance ought to give their things away. So the reason
again,
Andrew,
generally speaking,
Andrew, I'm reclaiming my time here. We've already gone through these, so I want to move it along.
Okay.
So I'm not changing the subject. I'm just moving it along.
No problem. It's your cross exam. Go ahead.
But I don't think that these things, I don't really agree that these are my politics either. And I'm a left winger, but I don't think that these agree with your politics either as a right winger. But these quotes are from Jesus, St. Thomas Aquinas, and St. Thomas More.
Yeah, well, who made that quote?
Which one?
The one you just read.
I read 4 of them. They came from
the last one. The last one that you said is unambiguous.
The second one I said is unambiguous, which was, it doesn't count if it's theft if you...
Who said it?
That's Aquinas.
Yeah, Thomas Aquinas. So the thing is Aquinas' worldview, especially Aquinas, this is why context matters, right? Because I bet a single paragraph beyond that, Aquinas would contradict himself.
No, I don't think so. I
bet he does. Go ahead, keep reading. Let's see.
No, I got this from Summa Theologica, and that's actually from the... I have it pulled up here.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna dive through. Or is it Utopia? No, Utopia is St. Thomas More's.
Yeah.
But I got this from the Summa.
Well,
and
Thomas Aquinas was a great apologist. Don't get me wrong, but I don't agree. Aquinas is not a person that I agree with more often than not.
Okay, and that's kind of my point, because you can't just say that this isn't Christian ethics. These are some of the most important and influential people in the history of Christianity. And
agreed.
Very good. But the problem is that I think, according to you, these ideas don't really have a place in government. But these are Christian ideas.
Why?
Do you understand the problem?
Why are you saying that I think they don't have a place in government?
Because you said you don't agree with these ideas.
Yeah, just because I don't agree with an idea doesn't mean it doesn't have a place in government.
Yeah, but it's according to you.
No, the view here is, here's what the debate is. The debate is, Christians shouldn't be allowed in government. They shouldn't, right?
No, not Christians, Christianity.
No. Christianity. Christianity shouldn't be allowed in government. Fair enough. Okay, I'll go ahead and grant it, and you can reclaim your time from here too. But I just want to clarify this, that just so you understand, what does that have to do with Christianity should or shouldn't being in government? I don't actually understand that. Can you help me out here?
Because if this is Christian ethics, and Andrew believes that the government needs more Christian ethics, but I can point at Christian ethics and it says that theft doesn't count if you're poor, then Andrew Wilson doesn't.
That's not what it says.
That Christian ethic.
He doesn't say theft doesn't count
Andrew
if you're
Wilson
poor.
Doesn't agree that Christianity belongs.
Well, I don't
That's
think
such
you
bullshit,
understand.
bro.
Maybe we can.
You're
start
so
with this.
slimy.
What do you think Christian ethics are?
So that's a good question for your cross exam right now.
Well, to answer, and he can reclaim the time. I just want to make sure that we're clear on this point, because it seems like we're talking. Do you think that inside of the ethical purview of Christianity that there's not rigorous debate? Of course there is. And not only is there, that's completely acceptable. And the idea that Thomas Aquinas could be debating across from, like an Orthodox bishop would be totally acceptable.
Yeah, well, I didn't really lay out very much of this in my opening, but I think this is the problem, I think, for the position that you take, is that these are basically contradictions. Whatever it is that you think the government should do, Christianity, I don't think, is ultimately the source. because you'd have to reject specific Christian ethics in favor of whatever Christian ethics you want, or claim that it comes from Christianity.
Yeah, but that would be the claim with any ideology which existed.
Yeah, that's true.
Like any two, in fact, I would just say any two people which exist. That would be the case and claim would be any two people who disagree. Then therefore, the person I disagree with has no place in government. Like, that's silly. Like, I disagree with Christians on all sorts of things constantly, but when you're talking about a general normative framework, we don't disagree very much at all.
Well, I don't think you would agree with what the bishop at Trump's inauguration said, for example.
She's not a bishop.
It is the case that you find.
It's a fake bishop.
The problem.
Fake bishop.
Well, according to her, you're a fake bishop. You know.
No. Their denomination recognizes Orthodox as being Christian. We just don't recognize theirs.
Well, that's an interesting position. But anyways, you can find justifications in whatever you want normatively in government, but you're going to find the opposite of it too. So that means Christianity holds the position of X and not X. So whatever justification or reason you have for the normative
I think you're conflating two
things
here. So it's not that Christianity holds the position of X and not X. It's that some Christians could hold the position of X and not X.
Yes,
but I thought you just said Christians aren't what we're talking about, but Christianity, right?
Yeah, but it's a Christian ethic developed by.
Well, which Christian ethics are contradicting themselves? You're talking about specific people, so I can make this argument to say, let's say I was talking about red pillars. I could say, well, this red pillar over here contradicts this red pillar, but that wouldn't tell us what the red pill was. It wouldn't tell us what the normative framework was of the red pill, let's say. So you're just talking about particulars with specific people. You're not actually talking about the ideology itself.
So for clarification, this has eaten up about 3 minutes, and
he can reclaim it. Look, I'm going to be super charitable here.
Oh.
He can definitely reclaim his time. I just want to make sure we clarify a few things. That's all.
Oh, I thought we were still on my time. I mean, I've been okay with it because I've been asking the questions I want to ask.
Okay, cool.
So I have 15 minutes left then.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's cool with me. Anyways, I hear what you're saying, and I think the next line of questioning I has kind of gets to it.
Okay.
Which is, okay, so some historical stuff. And I'm not trying to poison the well or lump you in with this stuff. These things are not good. But I'm just throwing them out there.
Are we doing the slavery stuff now?
No, nothing about slavery actually. But I mean, I could talk about that, but whatever. In Virginia, this is in colonial times. There's a guy, his name was Hugh Davis. He was sentenced to corporal punishment for having relations with a black person. Mm-hmm. His specific accusation was, quote, abusing himself to the dishonor of God and shame of Christianity by defiling his body in lying with a Negro, unquote. We agree that that's bad. In 1959, Richard Loving and Mildred Jeter, they were both sentenced to jail in Virginia for the crime of being married.
Yeah, but this is just Protestant prattle.
The trial judge, he gave them a deal that they could actually avoid jail if they agreed to flee the state of Virginia for 25 years. And his reason was, Almighty God created races, white, black, yellow, Malay, and red, and he placed them on separate continents. And but for the interference with his arrangement, there would be no cause for such marriage. The fact that he separated races shows that he did not intend for the races to mix. And if you look at polling, interracial marriage at this time had a 4% approval rating. It was widely deemed, 4% approval. Yeah, it was just widely deemed to be wrong. There's this guy, Pastor Anderson. He's a real piece of shit. He says, look, the Bible clearly says that homosexuals need to be put to death, and the United States government should do it. So I'm sure that Andrew Wilson disagrees with all of that, right?
Yeah.
I don't think you understand. Homosexuals do lead to death. It's just a fact.
Well, what you're
it's not like it's not a prescription of, like when God says you die no matter what. Period. There's death. Somebody dies when God says you die. Like it's not like some mystical moral punishment that like, oh, like the government has to come into your life and kill you. It's like, no, when faggotry happens, people die. It's just a fact. It's just measure physics. Like, do you dispute physics? Like the contemporary understanding of physics? Do you dispute the most fundamental and most evidential, like physical science that exists, the physics itself, right? And the law of entropy, and that this human species dies out sooner rather than later, right? In a closed system with homosexual fucking, right? In a hypothetical, given entropy, and so it leads to death. Human death, the species death.
Now, if you put it in question form,
so people do die because of homosexuality. It's just you're saying I'll sacrifice those people, right? The future people, or the people who have to starve for every scrap during the entropy wars.
It's pretty stupid,
right?
For one thing, I want to shoot rabbit. I want to shoot rabbits from a trolley cart. That's one. But the other thing is that I would not, if I were to say to you...
It's like the entropy wars will literally be like billionaires with robots that obey them, right? With like starving people who live stream themselves starving, and they say, please, master, give me a penny so I can suck on the tit of a water buffalo.
I'm not sure. I didn't follow the very end there that much.
Yeah, if I said to you, this law bad, and person did bad thing based on this law, and then use the justification.
And then there are the people watching out for the baby buffaloes, and then the carrion at the bottom of the canyon feeding on the baby buffalo.
That's all secularists. That would be the same fallacy that you're engaging in.
So genetic fallacy was already defined. This is just eating up time at this point.
Sure. So I actually think that you'll see that I'm not really doing that, but I have to kind of evolve the conversation. So we can both agree that that's wrong. And I would argue that you would probably say that what those people's positions was wrong from a Christian ethical position.
Sure.
I would wager at least. Okay, perfect. So next question would be, do you think that the positions today that the majority of Christians have are all correct? Or do you think that future Christians will look back at today and condemn certain positions that Christians hold?
Yeah, okay, so I just want to make sure I got this right. So I'm just going to steel man this to make sure I have it correct, and then you can tell me yes or no before I answer. And again, you can reclaim your time. I just want to make sure I get it right. So the question is, has Christian ethics evolved? And will Christian ethics continue to evolve so people will look back now and say, hey, we got this wrong? Is that
Christian ethics doesn't evolve? Just our presumptions about the facts evolve to inform us about our ethical
groups that we're going to point to in the future and say they got
propositions.
For sure.
So, for example, the Catholic position that human life begins at conception has always been universally the case, because that's what conception means. But then the argument that conception begins at fertilization has been evidentially strongly proven, I would say, as much as any biological proof can exist, that human life begins at fertilization.
I never said that.
Conception is at fertilization.
That's a normative framework.
Morals?
Yeah, ought. Those are ought claims, right? You should or should not do.
Because there's a universal human identifier in their DNA.
I draw a distinction between
at fertilization, a unique one,
and normative.
Well, I don't understand.
That's never existed before.
If you say something is moral, you ought do what's moral, right? That's normative.
No, I don't
outside
think you
of
can
like
derive an ought from an is.
An identical twin, which you're a clone of.
How do you just wait?
I discussed this.
Hang on, help me out with this real quick, just very briefly. You can reclaim the time. Reclaim the time. I just need to clarify. I just need to clarify this. I just need to clarify. That's all I'm asking, is for clarification. How can you describe a thing as being moral without an ought? I don't even understand that.
That's a good question for the cross-exam.
No, I need that clarified now, or I can't. I don't even know what he's asking me. So just clarify it quickly.
I understand that moral systems are systems of prescriptions or whatever for taboos or claims of what you should do, like should or should not.
It's also descriptions.
Like in a way, but I don't. But
it's about what the good is. It's not about. It's not necessarily about what
thing as
needs to be prescribed.
Again, like what I was talking about earlier in my opening.
Well, normative description or normative prescription.
I can tell you that a compass
because there's
is
both
better at drawing a straight, or as I'm sorry, a ruler is better at drawing a straight line than a compass.
Yeah, those are descriptive.
For example, like it's a normative descriptive.
That's all descriptive.
Wrong to draw
all humans have water, H2O in their body, right?
This, when you say better, on some level, making a normative claim. You're not saying you ought to make.
That's a normative descriptive, and then it's a normative prescriptive. That humans should have a certain ratio of water, like what 70-something%.
Then those are normative.
And that like
that's a normative framework that you're
some ratio of depletion of that amount of water is dehydration.
A ruler does
and you ought not to be in that state,
right? That is not
because it leads to the undoing of the animal that you are and kills it.
Normative claims, though. Right?
And so it contradicts the description that is
into the topic
of your nature,
of whether or not
which is that you are naturally made of water.
I'm pointing out I'm going to get there
or
very soon.
Not made of water, but you know what I mean.
By
like
pointing out a contradiction.
You have parts of water that are water.
Is my time paused or not?
That you're entitled to
so
as a human right.
Okay.
Time being taken over for.
Yep. I understand.
Well, you can't give him time back. You can't give him time back for me answering questions. You can just give him time back for me clarifying them. That's what's fair.
Yeah, but I think we're now done with
I've been very fair with it. It's been more than 7 minutes.
All right, go ahead.
This is Peterson's cross-exam.
That's fine.
Is it Taco? I didn't know that. I didn't know that, Taco.
So here's where I think the problem lies in. You're appealing to a Christian ethic to condemn what those people did in the past. I asked you about that earlier. You said yes, but that's going to happen in the future to positions that Christians hold.
It's just
today.
An amazing.
So I don't understand how you can use the Bible or Christian ethics because people
but it's
in
like
the future
the convoy won't make it.
You or other Christians to be wrong.
I don't know, man. I don't know what to do.
Yeah, but can you imagine?
I think that's the contradiction.
Like this one stumped me.
Well, first of all, there's no contradiction, right? A contradiction is a proposition in its negation. There's no negation of any proposition that you've made. All you've said is that
yes, there is.
No, no. What you've said is
because you're going to hold on. You're going to argue these are the things we should do. These are the things we shouldn't do. That's what slave traders and segregationists said in the past, appealing to Christianity.
It's
chaos.
But as long as they don't get stuck, they're stuck.
That's my proposition.
Like as long as they don't get stuck, there's still a chance they might make it over.
In the future,
bro.
Meaning,
I don't know why. Listen, I got
it according to Christianity.
Okay, listen, so that you understand. This has to be mine in order for there to be a contradiction. You're saying that Christianity contradicts itself. You have to give me the proposition Christianity gives, and then its negation in order to demonstrate the contradiction. What you're doing is you're giving particulars and saying because people make the self-ID claim of X, therefore this system is flawed. Now, if somebody did that back, you'd never accept it in a million years. So if somebody were to say, well, this secularist in communist Russia, which was a secular nation, did the whole Holodomor, therefore all secular ethics are bad, you'd never accept that in a million years, right? Because it's silly. It makes no sense.
Well, I believe in moral progress. Well, not really moral progress, I guess, but I don't know what else to call it. But if you believe that you have an objective and unchanging ethic, then to say yes and the ethic evolves over time, to me that screams that you're appealing to something outside of Christianity.
Hang on, you're right. Hang on. I'm going to give you.
It's just that there's a duality to the.
I only need 10 seconds.
There's There's the epistemological knowledge and principle of the ethic, and then there's the information of how to apply that ethic.
To claim that the other person's ethic
like for example, the ethic is exist as opposed to do not exist, right? categorically across all things, right? Just imagine everything that exists as a categorical fact of its nature must exist, right? And then there's a hierarchy of the simplicity of
or here, I'll give you a better example.
Existence in its permanency and immortality, you might say. Right.
Essentially,
humans have the ability to say permanent, for example, and they're able to leverage every single possible word relation that you can conceive of in the scientific spectrum with leverage with that word, right?
And it doesn't matter what people
making the human more a priori and permanent, more fundamental than any thing that can be named a posteriori to the words that you're able to say, including God, because you're in God in some sense, right? You're one, like you're not one with God, but you can be unified with God, right, and be a part of His body, right, and join His church.
Yeah, I'm trying to explain.
This is the no true Scotsman fallacy, which is implicit
and then
in
that
the
like makes you like the Imago Dei, like that doesn't make you that, but it makes you real, like honor it and like fulfill the duties that come along with being it, because you are it from like conception, right? I guess we would say from the beginning.
No, it's not the same difference. When you use a no true Scotsman,
like, you don't become it. Per se,
when you use a no true
I guess like that, like in some way, like the Western way of like the of theosis is like through irony, where it's where you realize, oh wait a minute, to become like God, I have to realize God doesn't become like God. God is that which does not become by definition. And so since God doesn't become like God, I cannot become like God. And then boom, it's like
and they
theosis in a way.
As in this case, the Scotsman.
To like to be God-like, or to be God, I cannot I cannot become God, right? In that sense, like to be as God is directly and concisely. I cannot become God.
I don't think there are 5
in
minutes
some way
left, because
except I guess
my timer was
through
just about to run out.
Creating new ontologies for myself to what's there's a technical word for it, like when God creates a body for himself, or even a spirit, like a metaphysical spirit, I guess, for himself.
I'm gonna address what you said, Andrew, and then I had a bunch of questions, but there's only one more I want to ask.
Or like maybe like an archetype, like
take up a huge
you might think of it that way. Like he creates like an archetype for himself, because like in the sense like there's the burning bush, there's Jesus, there's maybe the Lord's angel, right?
The issue I'm having here is
you're saying whatever that is called, like is technically like becoming God, right? You could say, but technically it's not either, right? But in an ironic way it is, right?
Like political or whatever.
It's God becoming, and then what does he become? He becomes God.
That there's the violation, or that they violated it as
God's
well.
becoming.
That's what I think is the pernicious contradiction in all of this. So,
well, even if the
irony that which
like, even if I granted
is unbecoming
argument that it was
becomes
the Scotsman fallacy, it still actually wouldn't be a contradiction. There's still no proposition and its negation happening at the same time. Well, all that would happen is that you could point out that I made some sort of fallacious argument, like, oh, they weren't real Christians. However,
especially with like the idea of like divine simplicity on planet Earth, and like how God's not supposed to even have potential, but it'll be pure the actual, and that you're supposed to conceive of all his becoming as somehow
it's very easy for me to say
innate in his one act of willing himself and knowing himself from all eternity.
It's an objective statement of truth.
That's a categorical imperative type of notion that I'm hearing there. I mean, anybody
it's
can
not an
fall
imperative.
short of.
That's not
anybody
Kantian
can
ethics.
Fall short of. Anybody can fall short of what they claim they believe in. We do that all the time.
Yes.
But
Christianity actually adjusts for this inside of its normative
what you're
ethics.
Doing in what your belief is.
So yeah, you understand Christianity actually has an adjustment for this. The idea of you shall know them by their fruits. So essentially, we can tell when people are violating Christian ethics, and our duty is to bring them back to the fold of Christianity. So when you point to just a particular of a violation of Christian ethics, that does not mean that this is on the back of Christianity. That would be a no true Scotsman fallacy. So if you're trying to say because Christians did this, and the Christian here are saying, well, wait, they aren't real. You would actually be making that fallacy. So the thing is, like, to back it up, just so you understand, if you violate your ethical purview with self ID, that's not a no true Scotsman fallacy for me to explain that inside of the religious purview, in this case Christianity, we know them by their fruits. That's what we know them by, and we have the particulars in order to make those judgments.
The problem there is, I'll say this and I'll just move on to the last thing. You're kind of, I don't know if I would call it begging the question or whatever, but you're telling them they violated, but you're ascribing your ethic onto them and saying they violated it, instead of understanding that according to them,
Pog.
is the ethic.
So then as long as people groups at that
okay, let's see if it works. This convoy
also claim that they violated it. You would have no case.
Here we go.
Does that even make sense to you?
Come on, baby.
So if Christians at the time
come on, baby,
non-Christian behavior, then
come
you would have
on,
an argument, right?
Let's make a baby. Let's make a cake.
Thing, but it's not as
right.
Let's bake a cake.
That's the problem, though. You still actually would have an argument for that particular thing. That's why the argument has no merit. It has no merit simply because you're pointing to.
I disagree.
You're pointing to a particular.
Oh, so clean.
Can we not look at our normative framework and see if people stepped outside of the particular? And it's like, yeah, of course we can.
That was so satisfying.
Does that
dude, I feel like I just got to hit a heroin or something.
Would be
not like I've ever tried heroin.
And then inside of the proposition, you put.
Is this what heroin feels like?
Was
this game is heroin.
Itself, what
I know what begging the question here is. My last thing though is there anything that only a Christian is capable of believing in besides like the specific claims about like the divinity of Christ?
I don't actually understand this question. So pretend I'm a fifth grader and you're asking it to me so that I understand it.
That's time, although you can.
No. Let him finish his question.
Yeah, this is the last thing. I'm not really sure how to simplify it really, but is there I'll just ask it again. Is there anything that only a Christian is capable of believing in?
Only a Christian is capable of believing in. I mean, I don't think so. I guess if I understand what your question is, can anybody believe in anything? Is that the correct way to maybe rephrase that? No.
I'm specifically trying to get at, is Christianity privileged? And my time is up, so I'll just end with the point I'm trying to make here. And you say no. I think the answer is no as well. And then I think that's kind of devastating for, well, Christianity doesn't. We don't need it in government, because if anybody's capable of believing whatever it is you're trying to get the government to do, then anybody can believe it, and it's not sourced via Christianity.
That's a very confusing argument to me as well, and I would love to dissect it, and I guess I can in a second with my cross-examination. But I'm just trying to understand. I guess I would need more clarity to even understand what you were asking. But anyway, if you're ready for the cross-examination, I am too.
So we'll be moving into your cross-exam now. It'll be 30 minutes as well. If obviously, feel free to reclaim your time.
I'm hungry.
What's going on? You can ask questions, get back on topic. Let me know when you're ready, and I'll go ahead and start your timer. And once again, try to answer the questions directly and concisely.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I'm ready when you are, Mr. Peterson.
Perfect.
So I hope I answered your question satisfactorily as I think I could. I hope you do the same for me. So, starting with this, do you have any problems with Christians being in government?
No, to the extent that a Christian holds because it's not should Christians be in government. It's Christianity.
I know. Just so none of these are going to be loaded, and none of these are going to be gotchas. I just want to make sure that I'm clarifying a couple things. First and foremost, just yes or no. Do you have any problems with Christians being in government?
No, because to the extent that a Christian holds beliefs and they act on them and whatever those beliefs are, to the extent that those beliefs overlap with the limits of government put in the Constitution, that's not a problem. I don't think it's a contradiction.
And inside of the Constitution, what can you explain very quickly what the process is for an amendment?
You need, I don't remember the specific numbers. You need 3/4 of the states to ratify it. As far as Congress, I don't know if it's 2/3 or what.
Yeah. So there's multiple ways.
I would just say
it has to be ratified.
The Establishment Clause says it's supposed to protect people from acting against their own conscience. Right, and we'll say like that's a part of the spirit of the law. Get them to say that's essential and spirited and essential to protect. And then say, okay, so should a Christian have to go violate their conscience and serve a gay person, like gay wedding cake or something? Right.
By the way, that's just factually inaccurate. But the thing is like that aside, we'll just leave that.
Or some bullshit like that.
Right.
Or like a United States Postal Service worker.
Let me just ask you this.
Like
Christians, then,
wishing somebody happy pride as like a mandatory like salute of like say that the next Democrat and like executive order, right, to counter Trump's executive orders about gender and try to eradicate them in a reactionary format.
So
if that potential word happens,
a system where you can amend amendments, the 21st or 2nd, whatever, undid prohibition.
Well, no, you can just undo amendments altogether.
Yeah, with amendments, but
yeah,
I mean the problem with, I think the problem with this is, that wouldn't be, if you amend the First Amendment, then I can just say, well, then we can just re-amend it because it was wrong of them to amend it in the first place. So
sure, yeah, you could re-amend it after you get power back, but if Christians actually have power, what is your actual argument against them amending the First Amendment, which is prescribed in the Constitution that they can do?
I don't have an argument that they can't do it. The First Amendment says that is something that can be done.
Should they not be able to do that?
Well, it's kind of weird because we have an Establishment Clause. So if they did that,
well, yeah, I mean, but we used to have a slavery clause, right?
Then it would be.
But hang on, Mr. Peterson, we used to have a slavery clause, right? And we amended that.
You used to have a slavery clause?
Yeah, we used to be able to own slaves. That was yes.
That wasn't. That's not a. No, none of the first 12 amendments said you can own slaves.
Okay,
that's completely false.
I'm sorry. Hang on. Back up. Hang on. Stop. It's not your cross-examination here. Okay, just so that you know, though.
Stop.
You do realize that there were state constitutions which said you can own slaves, right?
There was your mom who said I could own a slave.
Before
she's like, "Come here, my little slave."
It specifically said that they could own slaves. Okay.
Yeah, specifically, and also. You do realize there was a 3/5 clause, right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Mom. Don't hit me.
So all those things.
You're not a slave owner. I volunteered to be your slave.
Well, if the Constitution gets changed, then that becomes federal law, and then it supersedes the state Constitution.
Right. So at the federal level, if Christians went ahead and amended the First Amendment, what's the problem?
Well, I think it would be wrong because I think that's a violation of what the First Amendment says.
Yeah, but wait, that's circular. The Constitution is set up so that we can amend amendments, yes or no?
Yeah.
So if it is the case that it's set up for us to do that, if Christians have power, and you have no problem with Christians having power, and they amend that amendment, what's the problem?
Because the framers of the Constitution set up the ability to amend the Constitution with respect to being able to produce a better, a more better union, or however they say it.
Yeah, but who are you to determine what's better? Who are you to determine that? Wouldn't it be the people who are elected? You want people to be elected by their constituency, yes or no?
Well, yeah.
Okay, and if the people who are elected by their constituency are Christians, you have no problem with that, yes or no?
No.
So then if those people who are elected by their constituency want to amend the First Amendment, that is the process that you want to be allowed to happen, right?
No, because you didn't let me. You didn't let me finish my answer.
Okay, go ahead.
Right, because the framers of the Constitution, they they built that system, and there are people that said we don't want a Bill of Rights. That was the first election. That was the one of the biggest issues up for that, because we didn't have a Bill of Rights at first. But they did that in order to they thought that was their way that in the future they'd be able to keep having a more functional, a better union, a better constitution, a better government. But they initially said no, no state government, because that will
well, I don't know. So, well, that's
government.
Very undemocratic.
So it would be in violation.
Mr. Peterson, that's undemocratic. Do you agree with me that that's not democratic? For you to say that we cannot change the First Amendment by democratic means, that's actually undemocratic, correct?
No, I don't think so.
Well, I don't understand. Is the capacity there for us to do it? Is it written into the Constitution that we can do this? And you don't have a problem with Christians being elected by their constituency?
No.
So what is your actual problem with Christians changing this if it's within the very system that you want them to change it in? Literally, your system is, I want to elect person goes in representing the constituency, all these people get together and they amend the First Amendment. That is the system that you want, right?
I don't want them to. The idea that amendments can be made means that I have to accept that the First Amendment should be amended. Is not a real case.
No. You don't have the should. You have the shouldn't. I want to know why it is that Christians shouldn't do that, other than because you don't like it.
Because, well, it'd be a violation of the spirit of the purpose of a constitutional
It doesn't sound like it. It sounds like the purpose of a constitution. No, it doesn't sound like it. Well, hang on. How would it violate the purpose of a constitutional republic if this is the framework of the constitutional republic, sir?
Because a government is supposed to outline a constitutional republic, sets limitations, and like there are other things that like it allows.
Yes, I agree. The constitutional republic sets limitations, and in these limitations, it says that you can amend the First Amendment. Yes or no?
Yeah, but
so this is the system you want, dude.
To trash just
it does.
law
It
onto
says
the
the free exercise thereof. You are wrong, sir. So, yes, if you got rid of the establishment clause, the free exercise thereof would be gone. So,
no,
yes, yes,
no,
yes.
No, the establishment clause is not the same thing as you are allowed to practice your
Yes,
religion.
it is. It says the free exercise thereof. I'll read it for you, sir. Here, we'll read it. Because apparently you don't even know what it says. Okay. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. Do you understand? The free exercise thereof. So if you got rid of that, they could prohibit the free exercise thereof, correct?
Sure. So
okay, great. Oh, wow, you just answered a fucking question. Can we get you a medal for actually answering the question? So, yes, it is indeed the case.
Dude, calm down.
It is indeed. Well, dude, I have to pull the answers out of you because you don't want to answer them. This is what I was talking about by bad faith. So, real quick, it's bad faith. Just answer the questions, dude. So, then it is the case that if Congress then no longer had to respect the free exercise of religion, they could actually go through and stop the bad behaviors of bad religions, couldn't they?
Yeah, which would be Christianity.
Okay, so do you think that there's any other religions in the United States which are worse than Christianity?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so then if Christians were in power and stopped the free exercise thereof of those religions, wouldn't that be good?
No, I don't think that would be good.
Oh, okay. So then when you say shouldn't, Christians shouldn't be in power, right?
You're never said that.
That's your whole claim. Your whole claim is that Christianity shouldn't be in government.
And you completely changed it by saying Christians shouldn't be in power.
We're saying the same thing.
Christianity shouldn't be in power.
You think what's the semantic distinction? What's the semantic distinction?
Because what you're talking about, Christians shouldn't be in government, means banning people that practice a certain religion from serving in government. I don't believe in that.
No. The semantic distinction between power and government. Clearly, if Christians have governmental authority, they have power. Like we're talking about the same thing. We're not talking past each other here. So the thing is, very quickly, because I only have so much time, if it is the case that Christians shouldn't be in government, but if Christians were,
that's not my claim.
Your claim isn't that okay? Christianity shouldn't be in government.
Yes.
Okay. So wait a second. So if Christians are in government, Christianity is not in government.
I address this earlier because I said, if a Christian serves in government and their beliefs overlap with the current structure of the Constitution or whatever, then there's no problem with that, because the Establishment Clause doesn't say we will ban, or we're going to do the opposite of all religions.
Okay,
because,
then help me. Okay, bro. So anytime Christians then who utilize their normative ethical authority for things like abortion in government, that's wrong? They shouldn't do that?
If they're imposing their specific religious beliefs on other people, then that's a violation of, I think that creates dysfunctional governments. That's a violation of the First Amendment.
What if it was just their ethical belief that correlated with their religious belief?
Yeah, hang on. No. This doesn't make, bro, you got to back way. Okay, we got to back way up.
Real fast, just under 10 minutes remaining. I did add about a minute and a half for clarification.
Okay, so just very quickly, Mr. Peterson, if the Supreme Court justices are Catholic, and a lot of them are now, and their interpretation, they're interpreting the law, right? They're also using, part of their interpretation is going to be their normative ethical framework, because that's how interpretation works. Mm-hmm. If they're using their Christian normative ethical framework, do you actually have a problem with that?
So if I had a problem with that would mean that I would just have to ban Christianity, but that doesn't actually make any sense. A Christian, we went over this earlier, anybody can believe whatever a Christian believes at the same time. So we can't just ban them from serving in government. That just wouldn't make any sense.
Then your whole proposition's destroyed. If the idea is Christianity shouldn't be in government, but Christians can go in and rule based on their normative ethics, then you don't have a claim. Your claim's just listen. I'm just gonna. I'll give it to you in premises. I'm gonna give it to you in premises so that you understand, right? Christians should be allowed in government. True or false?
True.
Christians in government should be allowed to reference their normative framework when making decisions in a governmental role. True or false?
Not exactly true.
What does that mean?
Because they can believe in things that are in congruence with the Constitution and with everybody else in general, and that can happen to be something Christians believe in. They're not the only ones that believe in the Golden Rule.
But they can amend the Constitution.
What's the contradiction between the Constitution and Christian belief? Then one contradiction between the Constitution and Christian belief.
They followed your entire law exactly, right?
Yep.
So then why shouldn't they be allowed to do that?
First of all, because as I've said a whole bunch of times, I think it creates dysfunctional governments. But this would also lead to potentially Andrew Wilson being subject to whatever the Pope says, because maybe that's the Christian framework we end up with. But
yeah.
So according to Andrew Wilson doesn't want this to happen.
What are you talking? What kind of weird straw man nonsense is this? According to Andrew Wilson, he doesn't want the Pope. And what the fuck are you talking? We're talking about you and your view, not Andrew Wilson's. You had a chance to grill Andrew Wilson's view. Your view, sir, is that it's perfectly acceptable for Christians to change the Constitution if they are elected by their constituency. Yes or no?
Yeah.
Okay, so then if Christians who are elected by their constituency change the Constitution in order to allow Christian stuff, whatever you think that is, how can you possibly say that they shouldn't be able to do that when this is the proposition itself? That they shouldn't be in government, yet they should be allowed to go in and change every facet of government. That, sir, is its proposition and its negation, an actual contradiction.
Because it creates dysfunctional governments. And the other thing is, like, it's
a totally functional government, dude. Totally functional. What do you mean? It's following your rules. Christian go in, they change it via an amendment, and then they rule based on the changed amendments, which is exactly what you claim we should be doing.
It's like calling fascism a functional government. It
was a functional government.
That doesn't mean that I accept it or that I think it's good.
But your whole claim here is like, it's dysfunctional to not allow Christians to serve in government. It's actually it's dysfunctional to not allow Christians to serve in government. If Christians go into the government and serve and then amend the Constitution, which they're allowed to do because they're in government, and then change it to make a bunch of whatever Christian stuff legal that you don't like, right? They're literally following your very process. So your proposition is Christianity shouldn't be in government. But its negation is, yes, Christians should be in government and should be allowed to change the amendments in government so that, yes, they should be allowed to do this. Should be allowed to change the amendments in government. No, Christians shouldn't be allowed to change amendments in government if they're elected?
No, I'm just disagreeing with. I know where this is going already. That's where I'm.
It's your proposition and its negation, and I'll just give it to you again. And I really do need a response to this. The proposition is Christianity shouldn't be in government. Its negation is, okay, Christians should be allowed in government, and they should be allowed to change anything they want in government as long as they're following the rules that are there. And then when they change the rules, which is completely fine, right, for Christian-y stuff, you don't have a problem with that because that's the form of government.
I do have a problem with that.
What's the problem?
Just because it can be done, like, we have open elections, so it's theoretically possible that a Nazi could be elected president. That doesn't mean that I have to accept that should happen or that it's good that it would happen.
No. Shouldn't. Wait, are you saying Nazis shouldn't be allowed in government?
Technically, I don't think that is illegal or anything.
Yeah, right. So if they shouldn't, so you're saying Nazis should be allowed in government. So if Nazis are allowed in government and then they change the government,
they shouldn't be banned. That doesn't mean I think that they should be. It's like free speech.
I'm not asking if you think Nazis. I didn't ask if Nazis should be allowed in government. I asked you I'm sorry. I asked you this question specifically. Should Nazis be allowed to be in government? Allowed.
So this is, I'm not trying to give you a Weasley answer, but it's like free speech. I don't think it's good. I don't like it when the government says these are the things you should and shouldn't say, but that doesn't mean that I
should Nazis be allowed to serve in government? Yes or no?
No, but I don't think that it should be illegal for a Nazi to be in the government. That's the difference.
So they should be allowed to serve in government.
If you frame
it
one
more time, should Nazis be allowed to serve in government? Yes or no?
In that framing,
okay. So real quick, I'm going to ask you again. I need it specifically answered. Should Nazis be allowed to serve in government? Yes or no?
It shouldn't be illegal. So yes.
Yes. Yes. Okay.
Yeah, but
okay. So hang on.
I don't know if you're
hang on. I just want to make sure.
Like,
hang on. No. I'm not trying to, bro. I'm not trying to clip it. I'm just trying to show you that if it's the case, then that Nazis who should be allowed to be in government go into the government and then change all the shit in the government to make it all Nazified, they should be allowed to do that, right? Because they're following the process of government, right?
Again, this is odd because it's like can versus
should. No, stop.
We know fascism isn't a functional kind of government.
Listen to me. If you say Nazis should be allowed in government, then they should be allowed to do their job in government, right?
If they should be, then they should. Again, that doesn't mean that I accept whatever amendments.
Can you just answer my question? I'm not asking you for qualifiers. I'm not interested. I just want you to actually answer the questions I ask. Should Nazis, if they're in government, do their job? Should they do their job that they were put there to do? So if the constituency of a bunch of Nazis puts Nazis in the government to do the job of changing the amendments to make it more Nazi-ish, they should do that, right?
No.
No. Why not? I don't understand. I honestly don't get this now. Now I'm super fucking confused. So let me get this right. I'm not asking for the normative ought of whether or not you think the amendment's good or bad. That's not, I don't care if you think the amendment good or amendment bad, only if you think that Nazis should be allowed to change the amendments to make shit more Nazi. Should they be allowed to do that? So in other words, if
you want a functional government,
if two-thirds of the states elected Nazis and they went to Capitol Hill, okay, and they said, hey, we want a new amendment that says there's going to be a new Third Reich, right? Somewhere. I don't know how they phrase it, okay? They should be allowed to follow the process of government. Not, is the amendment good or bad? I'm not asking that should claim. Only should they be allowed to do that based on the prescription of the government that you advocate for?
I guess technically yes. That doesn't mean it has my endorsement or that I think it would be
perfect. I'm not saying you endorse it, bro.
Yeah, I know.
I'm not saying you endorse it. Listen,
yeah, I know.
So often.
A minute and a half remaining.
Okay, very quickly. Then this same logic would apply to Christianity. Should Christians be allowed to serve in government? Yes. Should, if they're there, should they do their job based on what their constituency wants? Yes. And if they follow all of the laws in order to make Christian stuff, they should be allowed to do that. Also, yes. The proposition is now negated. This is a performative contradiction you've been caught in, because when you say Christianity shouldn't be in government, however, Christians should be allowed to change government to make it into Christianity, you negated your own proposition.
I just don't agree on that at all.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, logic disagrees with you.
The reasons that I stated Christianity shouldn't be in government are because that would make it could potentially, or could, whatever, it doesn't matter, lead to a more dysfunctional government, one that disenfranchises.
Let me ask
people.
you one last question. Just one last question, very quickly. Should pedophiles be allowed in government?
I think most of them are.
Yeah, but, should they be allowed in government?
No, I don't think so. I think there are certain things because that's a felony, I believe. So no, I don't think felonies.
They didn't get a felony. No. They did it when they were like, I don't know, just under the legal age or something. Like 2 days before the legal age, right? And it wasn't a felony for whatever reason, right? They got away with a misdemeanor. Should they be allowed to serve in government?
Are you talking about a pedophile or somebody who got a misdemeanor?
Yeah, pedophile. Just let him answer this last question like I did him the service of doing. Should pedophiles who are only convicted of misdemeanors be allowed to serve in government? In fact, here's an easy one. Should pedophiles who just say that they're attracted to children but have never actually acted on it, should those pedophiles be allowed in government?
Sounds like a bad idea.
So no, they shouldn't be?
I don't think so.
No. Okay. So then we'll just follow the law when you want to follow the law and then not follow it when you don't want to follow it. All right. Fair enough. All right.
You didn't ask me if... Okay, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah, I did. So, I asked you if they should be allowed to be in government. Should they be allowed to be in government? You can reframe the answer. Should pedophiles be allowed to be in government?
No.
No. Okay. Well, then you're just only applying the law when you choose to apply the law. Thank you.
Okay, so with the question and answers, what we'll be doing is we'll be going through questions. I got a list of questions on the YouTube. We'll go through that. Also, if you are not on the server yet, join discord.gg/politics. Once again, discord.gg/politics. And you can join the live chat and actually raise your hand and engage with them with a live question. I can set the timer for 30 minutes if you guys just want to do 30 minutes. Or if you're okay with taking more than that, we can just go by air, and then we'll move into the conclusions.
Well, very quickly, Taco, I did want to say very quickly, I know that was a very aggressive cross-examination, but I don't hold any bad feelings towards you, man, right? This is a debate. My job's to represent my worldview the best that I possibly can. And so, yeah, I'm always aggressive in cross-examination, but no hard feelings there.
No, I mean, that was by far the chillest Andrew Wilson debate that's ever taken place, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, no.
So,
no.
It was fine.
Go ahead.
At least that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Cool. And once again, that's discord.gg/politics. Do you guys have any questions about how we're going to do the question and answer? If not, I'll just go over the basics with it. No? Cool. So the program here, we're going to pull people up. You guys will get a question. If you need to clarify something, that's fine. There's a lot of people that have questions, so let's try not to ask 4 questions back to back. If you want to raise your hand again later, you're welcome to if they're willing to give us some time. Do you want me to set the timer for 30 minutes, or are you guys all right with going until whenever?
Well, I have another place I got to actually be in about 15 minutes. This went a little over what I thought I'd be, but but I'm happy to stay and answer a few questions anyway.
Gotcha. So,
sorry, I'm preparing for a trip. I'm heading out soon, so
that's fine. You can give him all the do all the Andrew questions. Also,
so I think it would be better to move into the conclusions then, and then we'll do that was ideally going to give you some ammo for the conclusions, right? But we can move into the conclusions, and then we'll pull up some Andrew questions, and then if you want to stick around, Eric, you can answer some questions as well. But at least that way we'll get you where you need to be on time, right? Does that sound good to both of y'all?
Yeah, I appreciate it, and thank you for giving me a little bit of leeway. I did very much enjoy the debate.
Yeah, and there was a lot of clarifying in the first one, so I wanted to make sure that we were addressing everything appropriately, right? But with that being said, we'll go ahead and move into the conclusions then. The affirmative is going to go first, so Planet Peterson, that's going to be you, and then Andrew, you'll do your conclusion after. You'll have 5 minutes for each of those, and then I'll try to pull up some Andrew questions, and then Eric, you can answer some questions as well.
Sure. There are so many things that I thought we would get into that we didn't end up getting into, and that's every debate I've ever had is kind of like that. But I think the main issue I have with the position that Christianity should be in government would come from the things I laid out before, whereas the Christian ethic is completely nebulous, and Christians across time, but even in the current moment, have wildly different ideas about what we should or shouldn't do. Like I brought her up earlier, but the bishop that spoke at Trump's inauguration, that's one kind of Christian ethic. Nick Fuentes has a radically different Christian ethic. And so because of all the contradictions, and then the temporal thing where Christians in the 20th century condemned Christians in the 19th century, but will in turn be condemned by Christians of the 21st century based on Christian ethic, means whatever goals you have for the government, whatever like prescriptions or whatever you want to give, I think ultimately are coming from something other than Christianity.
What kind of bullshit is
this?
And look at these fucking donos.
Touch on
look at this.
I don't know, maybe just like one thing that
look at all this content. $197.
Make a case on.
I'm not, whatever, dude. I'm not debating for this kind of grift.
Birth rates or something.
There needs
like
to be
that.
better grifts.
But I think all these appeals
there needs to be
fall
better
short
grifts
because
okay?
what these typically are.